My role, I think, in history has been to spearhead the transition from feudalism to democracy. Because I was perhaps the first major prince, as it were, and there were smaller princes, but the first major prince to come into the democratic system and to fight elections and to get into power. As a result of which, I took certain decisions which were perhaps not popular with everybody, but which helped me come into the mainstream of national life.
Dr. Karan Singh's public life spans the very journey of independent India. The son of the last Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, he served as the state's first elected head and later held several key ministerial positions in Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's cabinet. But beyond politics, Dr. Karan Singh played a quiet yet crucial role in India's early environmental awakening. As one of the senior members of Indira Gandhi's government during the 1970s, he supported landmark conservation efforts, including the launch of Project Tiger in 1973, a program that would become one of the world's most ambitious wildlife protection initiatives. A lifelong advocate for nature's spirituality and ecological balance, Dr. Karan Singh continues to offer reflections on how India's ancient wisdom can guide modern conservation. Today, we sit down with him to explore that very journey.
Actually, Shashwat, in India has more variety of flora and fauna than any country in the world. Kashmir to Kanyakumari, you will find every state has its own speciality. Now, Jammu and Kashmir is particularly diverse because you have the valley, which has those magnificent deodar trees. They are the glory of the deodar and the chinar. These two trees are the glory of the valley. So they are magnificent trees. Chinar, of course, shed their leaves. Deodar are evergreen trees. Those are the two trees there. Then you can go up into the mountains and you get different kinds of flora as you go higher and higher, and different kinds of animals. You get the famous Barasingha, the hangul, which is on the verge of extinction. When you go a little higher, then further on you get black bears and you get brown bears and so on. And you even get snow leopards further up in the mountain. Now the Jammu area is totally different. Jammu area is the foothills of the Himalayas, and they have their own forests and their own animals, a lot of leopards. So it's very varied and very beautiful. Kashmir is known for its beauty, and I've been very lucky. The house where I live in, I think, is the most beautiful view in Kashmir, which is why I've chosen it. So it's very, very glorious and varied. But then every state is different. You see, I remember, for example, in Kashmir, once my father was there, everything was under control. The moment he left and we got our democratic government, then these trees started getting cut right and left. And there was blatant misuse of the Forestry Act, and they used to go in, these thekedars, and those forests then re-emerged as Jawahar Nagars and Netaji Nagars in various cities. They built their houses there. That was really very disturbing. So I had to try my best to try and revive. You see, the Maharajas saved the wildlife because they wanted to shoot it, for one thing, which I never did. I was never into shooting. But nonetheless, as a result of that, a lot of wildlife was saved. And a lot of forests, for example, Dachigam, which is the last resort of the Hangul, that was my father's private shooting reserve. Only he and his guests were allowed to go there. And as long as that was so, it was safe. 2-3 pashu at the most were killed in the year, which is not to be scoffed at, but still, there wasn't mass shooting, like there was of tigers in the rest of the country. They were predators in the sense that they shot a lot of animals, but they were also protectors. Because unless they protected the forest, there would be no animals. But then it stopped. So I got that stopped. And now these have become national parks, many of these places. My role, I think, in history has been to spearhead the transition from feudalism to democracy. Because I was perhaps the first major prince, as it were, and there were smaller princes, but the first major prince to come into the democratic system and to fight elections and to get into power. So I think then that was followed by a lot of other people. That is something that I feel very good about, because I realized that there had to be change. I realized that even in my father's time, as a result of which I took certain decisions which were perhaps not popular with everybody, but which helped me come into the mainstream of national life.
Listen, I remember there's one letter that you mentioned that the passing of your father, where you mentioned that you won't take the, that time princely.
I wouldn't use the title Maharaja.
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't use it because I was in the cabinet, and it sounded very odd if I continued to call myself Maharaja. So I was known as Yuvraj as long as he was alive, Yuvraj Karan Singh, Yuvraj Karan Singh. Once he passed away, I said, it so happened, luckily, just at that time I got my doctorate. So I became Dr. Karan Singh. It suited me much better than Maharaja. Yes, I joined in 1967 as tourism minister. I was 36 years old. I loved that portfolio because that was really very, it was Air India, ITDC, and I got in a lot of private sector people involved in the ITDC particularly, and Air India was, JRD Tata was still there. So between aviation and tourism, there was no five-star hotel south of Bombay, not a single one. So I paid special attention to the five-star hotel, the Ashoka in Bangalore, the Kovalam Beach Resort in Kerala, the Mahabalipuram complex in Tamil Nadu, and so on. So I did a lot of work then. Abroad, I did a lot of work because we had tourism offices and Air India offices. But they were, as usual, departmentalized. So I said, we're in the same ministry, for God's sake. Combine the two. By combining the two, we had very few tourist ministries. Suddenly, every Air India office became a tourist office. So automatically, tourism picked up in a big way. And then our posters used to be very boring. I got some really good posters made and so on. So I did a lot of interesting things at that time.
How did you start to work on the environment front?
You see, I'll tell you, on the environment front, what happened was that, I think this was way back in 1969. Indiraji one day called me and said, this Indian Board for Wildlife has become more or less defunct. The chairman was Maharaja Jaya Chamaraja Vadiyar, a very fine man, but not very moving. He was rather static. So the board had hardly met. So she said, will you take it over? I said, yes, I love wildlife. So I'll take it over. I took it over, and I'd like to tell you this story because a lot of articles have been written on the 50th anniversary of Project Tiger. They don't mention these vital facts. First meeting, we just introduced ourselves. Ranjit was also there. Ranjit Singh, he was a member. And there were some very, very distinguished members there. And first meeting. Second meeting, when I looked at the papers, I realized that our national animal until then was the lion. Obviously because of this national animal. Not this national stambha. So I said, this is very strange. Our lions are found only in one corner of India. And tigers are ubiquitous all the way from Himachal down to Kerala and from Assam all the way across to Gujarat. So I said, we passed a resolution in that board meeting urging the Prime Minister to change the national animal from the lion to the tiger. I took that to Indiraji. As a result of that, she changed the animal. It's a very extraordinary coincidence that my nickname was Tiger. And my enemies say that that's why I changed the animal, but that's not true. It's not true. It just so happened, yes, I was known as Tiger. All Panditji's letters to me are my dear Tiger. My father used to call me that for some reason. Although I was very non-violent, I wasn't hostile or anything, but apparently Maharaja of Jodhpur was sitting there, his dear friend Maharaj Umed Singh, and I crawled into the room. I was still crawling. He said, look, he's crawling like a tiger. So, tiger hi naam pad gaya. So first of all, I want people to know that I was responsible for making tiger the national animal. Then what do we do now that it is a national animal? Now we need a project to preserve it, because the tigers were rapidly depleting between the ego of the Indian princes who shot them right and left, and the feudal necessity for the governor to shoot and the viceroy to shoot and so on, and poachers. So I'm not sure, we were down to about 1,200 or so tigers, I think, at that time. I don't remember the exact figure. So we set out this Project Tiger. I was the first chairman of Project Tiger. Indira ji, of course, supported all the way, so she has a lot of the credit, because without her support, I couldn't have done it. And I chose Kailash Shankhala, who was a very fine forest officer from Rajasthan, as the first project director. And then we chose at that time 9 projects in various parts of the country and started with that. And that became, over the years, one of the most successful conservation projects ever in the world. Because now they're back to over 3,000. And in 13th of April 1972, Baisakhi Day, I inaugurated Project Tiger in the Corbett National Park. ये बातें तो कोई लिखता नहीं है. They all write about Project Tiger. They don't say बना कैसे tiger and किसने आरंभ किया. So, well, I must say Indira Gandhi shares the credit fully, because without her support, I couldn't have done it. You see, because Indira ji supported fully, the funding I got through the Government of India, with some support from the World Wildlife Fund. They supported us mainly with technical advice and some technical instruments and all to measure. But it was entirely an Indian project. There was a wrong impression abroad that it was a WWF project. It wasn't. It was an Indian project supported by the World Wildlife Fund. All the projects are in the states. None of them are in union territories. So the responsibility of actually implementing the project is on the states. We can fund it from the center, but they have to see that the forest officers perform. So as long as the Prime Minister was interested, all the Chief Ministers were. The one thing we didn't do adequately, I think Rajit will agree, we didn't pay adequate attention to relocating those villages. Some villages were relocated, but we didn't give the people the impression that these projects are for them. It became a sort of a government thing versus the villages, and the villages moved out with great resentment. I think we should have paid, later we did, I believe, we should have paid more attention to the human factor involved. Because when villages are relocated, it's a painful thing for the villagers. We have to convince them that there's a good reason for them being relocated. There, I think we didn't do, at least I felt I didn't do enough of that time. And of course, it's grown now. I don't know how many are there now? 54 tiger reserves as against 9. You see how fast it has grown. And I was very happy to be able to make some small contribution to this whole vast project of environmental preservation. We can change that by having a very strong environmental grassroots movement. It has got to become a people's movement, not only a governmental commitment. So we must have strong environmental societies everywhere. Young people must be taught the importance of the environment in their school curriculum. They must grow up realizing the importance of the environment. So we've got to have a whole culture of environmental preservation, which cannot only be top-down. You're quite right. It has so far tended to be top-down, but I think gradually environmental awareness is growing, but not growing fast enough. We have to increase that. So my takeaway from the whole thing is that we are part of the environment. You see, if you look at the Atharva Veda, there's a Bhumi Suktam in the Atharva Veda, Shashwat, 72 slokas. It is the most comprehensive and integrated statement of environmental values that you will find anywhere in the world. 72. And that is why she quoted from that, from whatever I dig out from the earth, may I not hurt your heart or your vitals. That's something which I was very impressed by. It showed that environmental protection is not new. Just because it's now in the West, it doesn't mean that it's new for India. For India, it's very old as the Shastras, thousands of years old. We have this tradition, ye Devi ka van hai, ye Shivji ki bauli hai. That's how, that the whole thing was made for this reason, so that we preserve these things. So I realized that environmental values are built into our civilization, and what we have to do is to combine the modern technology and the new interest in conservation with our tradition. The most outstanding text is the Bhumi Suktam in the Atharva Veda, 72 verses. Remarkable. They should become better known, because the way they put the environmental protection is quite astounding. Then everywhere they saying कि वृक्ष नहीं काटना चाहिए, पाप लगता है, you mustn't cut a tree. That is also a widespread thing. So the trees were looked upon as sacred. They are. So the trees bring us the rain. Without that, we wouldn't survive. They give us the oxygen. They too say, Ano Bhadra. There's a very nice mantra. For interfaith, Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. There are many faiths there. And Ano Bhadra Kritavo Yantu Vishwataha. That noble thoughts come to us from every time. Then Sarve Pi Sukhina Santu, Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kachit Dukha Bhagavad. What greater socialism can there be than this? May all beings remain happy. And for beings to remain happy, you have to have a happy environment. If the environment gets worse and worse, beings will not be happy. So there's a lot of linkages between our various concepts and the broader thing of Mother. And as I said, this whole concept of Dharti Mata, yahi se paida hua. You see, we look upon the human race as part of nature. We grew out of this earth. 2 billion years ago, the first molecules started forming, and we've come to where we are today. Without the earth, we couldn't have come. Now, if we despoil the earth now, as we're doing, then nature is going to hit back. Look at what's happening now. Global warming is upon us, creating havoc. We have tornadoes, and we have floods, and we have wildfires, and around the world, the environment is being destroyed. Nature is hitting back. So we have this built, as I said, built into our cultural heritage. We've just got to rediscover it and realize that environmental protection is not only a Western concept, it is very much of an Indian concept also. And we've got to marry the two concepts as it were. And education is very important, Shashwat. We have to put environmental education into our school curriculum. Unfortunately, many of the children now grow up without once having seen a jungle, because they're all in these urban conglomerates. They have to be taken out wherever possible, to a river or to the ocean or to a forest, whatever is nearest. The children must be exposed to the environment also. Not only look upon it as a theoretical concept, but as an actual reality. There's a limit to which even the mother can support the children. Our population is growing, but our environmental awareness has not grown accordingly. So I think so civilizational values and environmental values are very close to each other. So my message to the young people is, first of all, do not get discouraged. When you look around you see a lot of corruption and a lot of inefficiency and all. So don't get discouraged. You have your own life, build your own inner consciousness, and have full self-confidence that you can make what you could do, what you want to become. And if you don't lose hope. Hope must always be there, and have a clear goal in your life to what you want to be, what sort of a human being you want to be. Not only what you want to be professionally, But do you want to be a decent human being? Do you want to be a kind and compassionate human being? Or will you become one of those cruel and thoughtless people who are now so prolific in the world? So you've got to look inwards also with your inner growth and outwards also to the community and try and correlate both of them. And above all, have faith in yourself. May the force be with you.